Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Z Cohen Sanchez, Executive Director of Soul Strategies. Z, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to talk with you today. You're currently in Chicago, the Windy City, for the Democratic National Convention. Tell us, how has it been? How is the atmosphere? What is it like in Chicago?
Chicago is the best city in the world, especially for a convention, I have to say. But I mean, the energy here has been electric. I mean, nothing that I think anybody expected it would be. I think we thought that the energy would be higher than what we originally expected it to be, but nothing compared to what it actually is. So it has been fantastic.
So talk about that. Where do you think that enthusiasm is coming from? Because as we sit here right now, it is Wednesday afternoon. On Tuesday, we saw the roll call, and many outlets compared and contrasted the RNC's roll call to the DNC's roll call. Normally, it's a more, dare I say, boring affair. It didn't seem that way last night. Lil Jon made a guest appearance. Every state had a different song. So what would you attribute this enthusiasm to?
I really think that the Democratic Party has completely shifted the way that we are messaging. And this is something that has needed to happen for a very long time, a very, very long time. And we have 75 days left, but I think that they came in strong. And I think that people made decisions that we can no longer have this attitude of when they go low we go high, as Michelle Obama once said. I think now the attitude is when they go low we go lower, and I think that this is speaking to the young people. This is speaking to all people. I really think that the Democratic Party honestly is waking up out of like a 20-year coma this week.
I want to talk about that because that was a huge moment at the DNC 8 years ago. Michelle Obama saying, when they go low, we go high. She spoke on Tuesday night, and the tenor of her speech seemed to be different. She
Yeah.
specifically called out Donald Trump by name, said that he went small. Her husband, former President Barack Obama, spoke. Probably the most viral moment of his speech was when he made that joke about the crowd sizes. He made a hand gesture that some have said seem to have a double meaning. So, what do you think of that strategy of when they go low, hey, we could meet you there?
Yeah. I think that what it really is that I think the Democrats have realized that this sort of disconnected like rhetoric of exactly that, of like, we have to be professional and polite, and everything has to be that way, otherwise they're not going to respect us. I think that they've completely shifted away from that, and that I think is what honestly we've needed to do for a very long time. And you can sense that young people are really starting to listen, and that they're engaged, and that they're here. And I will say that I've seen that there's been a lot of comparisons between this convention and the convention of 2008. But honestly, I think it's a little bit different. I mean, I think that the energy of 2008 was very much centered around Obama as a rising star of the party. I mean, without Obama as that placement, I don't think that there would have been that sense of hope that we found in the 2008 convention. But this, honestly, I think you could really put anybody in Kamala's position, and I don't think it would change the atmosphere. And I think that's what's really different about the moment right now, is that this isn't a moment to center around her as an individual. This is a moment for the Democratic Party to say, we've had enough, and we are going to fight back stronger than we ever have. And I think that's what's been missing.
I want to talk about how we got here because it was just a month ago today that that President Joe Biden did step out of the race, and then from there, really 48 hours later, Vice President Kamala Harris became the likely nominee. Now she is the top of the ticket here. So can you talk about how people feel about it? Are there any sour feelings? Does it feel really unified in Chicago? Because we saw President Biden essentially pass the torch on Monday night. There were cheers of thank you, Joe. What is it like?
Yeah, I have not experienced any type of like negativity about her being the nominee, which is quite fascinating because I mean, Fox News was saying that there was going to be what, 50 to 100,000 protesters. There really hasn't been very many. I've seen a couple of them, very sort of disjointed demonstrations, but those are not Democratic voters for the most part. I mean, most of those people are non-voters, and there hasn't really been any type of organized coalition for Palestine like they said that there would be. So I think that it's a very positive atmosphere right now. Everybody's here together, young, old, all different cultures, religions, and everybody is here to say that we are not going to have another Trump presidency no matter what. We are willing to fight to the end.
President Biden's speech on Monday night did essentially, like I said, pass the torch. He did say, he talked about his legacy, essentially said Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Walz will carry that on. As I'm sure you know, there was a snafu with the DNC platform. Over 20 times it did say Biden's second term. So what do you say to criticisms that are essentially a Harris presidency is essentially a Biden presidency in disguise? It's a different messenger, same message.
Yeah, I think that the message is, well, first of all, I think that obviously whoever was writing that should, have done a better job. But to be perfectly honest, I mean, there are a lot of staffers that are still getting experience and understanding this process. And I think that's what makes the Democratic Party so great is that anybody can come in and there are so many open positions and ways for them to get involved. So I don't think it's honestly, I think it was probably a mishap on that end. But I honestly, as I said, I don't think that it really matters about like who the nominee is. I think that we would see this honestly with any nominee. I think that Kamala is much further left than Biden is. I think she's running a much more populist message. And she's a lot more progressive on the issues, which I think is something that's been missing that people have been really wanting for a long time.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Where do you see the differences from a Biden presidency to a Harris one? Because vibes in the Democratic Party have been discussed all-time high. The momentum, the energy is there. But where's the policy? Because on Monday night and into Tuesday, the Harris Walz campaign didn't have policies laid out on their website even.
Yeah. So, well, what Kamala's been talking about so far is, we've been talking a lot about the first time home buyers loan, which is going to be, I think, so incredibly important. I mean, she said that $25,000 as the down payment for first time home buyers. That's nothing that Biden has ever mentioned or wanted to do in the past. There's a lot of conversations right now about universal child care and what that could mean. There's a lot of conversations about a ceasefire in Gaza. That's something that Biden has stayed away from with a 10-foot pole, and I think that some of these messages, I think her platform will be rolled out strategically over the next, several weeks. But I do think that the things that she is starting out with are the things that I think that she is using to separate herself from the Biden administration, who I do believe is a little bit further right than she is.
Let's talk about a preview of what is still to come in Chicago. Tonight, Governor Tim Walz, the VP nominee, is expected to speak. He has two different personas depending on who you ask. If you're a Democrat, you think he is that Midwestern dad. If you're a Republican, you think, hey, he definitely inflated his service record. He potentially misspoke when he was talking about his family starting with IVF. I mean, so what are you expecting from him tonight?
Honestly, I really hope that he comes out strong on economic policy. I really do. I think that there's going to be a lot of conversation about a woman's right to choose. But I think that overall, as Democrats, we all agree on that issue, right? And I think what Walz needs to do is really separate himself with the economic issues, because ultimately, those are the issues that matter to the swing voters and the swing states. And I think it's wonderful that we are all here and the energy is so high and we've never felt like this before. But what happens on Monday morning? That's really the question, right? Like, what happens on Monday morning when we all go home and us as politicos go back to our regular lives? And, we have less than 75 days left at that point to get out there to those swing states and really make a case for why are we better for you economically? Because that's what a lot of these voters are worried about. They're worried about their own wallets, and for good reason.
What does happen Monday morning? I think that's an excellent question, because how do you bottle up this excitement, this enthusiasm, and make it last until November? Because if we remember a month ago at the RNC, vibes from Republicans were just as high as this. if we remember, it was right off of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. There was a really unified Republican Party, and the wind was really taken out of their sails because 2 days later, narrative shifted. President Biden dropped out of the race, and you saw Democrats really on the offense and coalesce around each other and around Harris fast. So, how do you make this momentum last?
You know what we have to do? We have to get out there and we have to knock every single door in this country, honestly. I mean, mostly in the swing states, we have to get out there and do that. But the way that we're going to keep this momentum growing is going to be on the ground directly in these extremely important states, but also like in all the states around the country. And that really has been something that Democrats have not done well in the past with. Joe Biden had a very weak field program. Hillary Clinton had barely no field program. And that's, I think that attitude too has shifted in Kamala Harris. In fact, you just saw, I believe it was on Monday night when she made her guest appearance, somebody yelled out, "You've already won," from the audience. And she turned around and said, "No, we have not won. And we have a long way to go." And I think that attitude of, we are excited, but we're not cocky is really an important attitude to have, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done in the next 75 days. And we have very little time to put that infrastructure together and to do it.
And what are you specifically looking out for her from her speech on Thursday night? Because as you said, she did make a surprise appearance Monday. She was speaking in Milwaukee last night. She's going to be speaking at the end of the convention. What do you want to hear from her?
I really want to hear about how that plan gets put into place. I think we're all in agreement on what the platform is going to look like. I think everybody's very excited about that. But the real question is how do we make this all happen in such a short amount of time? And knowing a little bit about Kamala Harris, I have a lot of faith that she understands that and that she is going to make sure that her staff is in place to make that happen. But I really think that as a party, we have to continue to push that, and we have to push that really hard for the next 75 days.
If you look at the polls, I was speaking with pollster Frank Luntz earlier this week. He said before Harris was in the race, it was really Trump's to lose. Now it seems to him that it's Kamala Harris's to lose. Do you think that's an indictment on Donald Trump, or do you think it's just this coalescing around Kamala Harris from the Democrats?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think at this point, I think Trump is losing support because he just can't stop lying, and he can't. I mean, I think that's a big part of the problem for him. I also think that when the debate comes, that honestly, I mean, she's just going to wipe the floor clean with him. I really do. I think it's this whole idea of the prosecutor versus the felon, I think is going to really stand strong, because I'm not sure what Donald Trump is going to be able to say to be able to rectify his record. I mean, his record is just so shameful, so awful, that I don't think that there's anything that he could bring up against Kamala that would make people shift their minds on that.
Before June 27th, the date of that debate between Biden and Trump, many people would say historically debates don't matter. Obviously, that debate changed the course of history, essentially. How important do you think that September 10th is debate between Harris and Trump?
I think it's everything, honestly. I think that and I think I know she's preparing for it now. And I think that she's really, she has to come in as strong as she has been during this convention. And I think that she will. I think she's going to be incredibly prepared for it. And I think she's just going to hit us with the facts. And I really hope that the American people will really actually look at Donald Trump's record and understand that this is not a person that we want to be running the country. I think there's also concerns as well about what happens during that election period. Will there be a peaceful transition of power? Will there not? I mean, there's a lot of questions in the air right now about what that could look like.
There was a sentiment on Monday night, according to a strategist or political scientist, rather, that I was speaking with, saying that it felt like there was a type of old guard versus new guard in the Democratic Party. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had a speech. She got a longer speaking slot than she did in 2020. There was Hillary Clinton as well as Joe Biden, but there were these newer faced Democrats. Do you see the party shifting more to a progressive way when you're looking at this DNC and the way it's rolled out, the messages that they're saying, the speeches that they're giving?
I do. I do. And I think that one of the biggest problems that we've had as a Democratic Party is that for so long, we have not given our young people the tools that they need to be successful. And that has hurt us. I mean, we've seen that. I mean, if Biden hadn't dropped out, I don't know what this convention would have been like. I can guarantee you it would not be the convention we're having now. It would probably look very similar to what the Republican convention looked like. And so I think that there's been a shift in that mindset of, you know, these people are getting older and they are retiring or they're passing away. And like we need to be able to give our young people the tools that they need to be there. I think the person who stood out to me the most, I mean, AOC is a firecracker. She's just amazing everywhere she goes. But somebody who's a little bit less known than her is Jasmine Crockett, who really like had such a heartfelt, empathetic, just amazing speech that she gave. And I mean, she's in such an important critical state in Texas. So, you know, I think that her showing that Kamala is not just there for her as a mentor, but has been there to guide her through her process just as a congresswoman. And hopefully we'll see that she guides her further in a higher position in the future. But I would love to see more of that.
And she's definitely a rising star in the Democratic Party. And obviously, the convention is all about the top of the ticket. But do you think there is enough focus on House and Senate races as of now?
Honestly, I think that we have, you know, I mean, there's a lot that we have to focus on, and I think we're shifting all around in terms of where our focus is. But to be honest, no. I mean, I think that there are a lot of seats that we have to be very, very careful of. My hometown, my home state of Nevada, we are in a fight for our lives for a lot of our seats, not just our U.S. Senate seat, but a lot of our seats. And I think that there are other states around the country as well. Arizona is a good example. There are a lot of states where I think we need to keep our focus. And I'm hoping that what Kamala does is that she aligns her schedule to make sure that she's supporting those really important seats that we have to make sure that we flip.
A lot of us are watching the DNC, seeing reports coming out of it, watching the moments on social media. Clearly, I'm not in Chicago. You can see the New York skyline behind me. So, but you're on the ground there. So, can you give us any insight, maybe any fun anecdotes? What have you been seeing on the ground that maybe viewers at home like us aren't able to see?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of community right now, which is just amazing. I mean, you know, people coming out and giving out free water bottles, people giving people free coffee, people making sure that everybody's okay, that they're able to get in safely. There's a lot of community that we haven't seen in a really long time. A lot of networking going on, a lot of really good conversations about like where the future of the party's going, which is also something that we haven't seen in a long time. I think that there are players now that are younger that have been given a step in because of this transition between Joe and Kamala, that they wouldn't have been there before. Some of the people that I'm thinking about too that have sort of been in the middle of the spotlight that have been great is like, for example, this guy Parker, who is a Georgia delegate who had a little tiff with Charlie Kirk on the floor of the DNC. And there's just sort of that like really great energy that's going on right now for some of these people. I mean, he's only 19 years old, and I've seen a lot of people his age out here that honestly I have not seen in past conventions people this young being so politically involved.
Dee, have a great time at the rest of the DNC. I always enjoy our conversations. I hope we can have another one soon. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.